October 732 AD. 15,000 men defeat 50,000 without charging once. This impossible victory has a name: Charles Martel. This is how Charles Martel stopped an empire at the height of its power. Not with speed, not with numbers, not with a heroic charge, but by standing perfectly still. The 8th century is not a slow age. It is an age of acceleration. For most of history, empires grow carefully, city by city, generation by generation. But now something has changed. Empires no longer rise over centuries. They explode outward in decades. From the deserts of Arabia, a new power surges across the known world. The Umayyad Caliphate expands with relentless momentum. Fast, confident, unstoppable. Speed replaces caution. Momentum replaces patience. And momentum becomes the deadliest weapon of all. The shockwave moves west. Syria falls. Egypt follows. Then North Africa collapses. Province after province, until resistance itself feels obsolete. Across the sea, Iberia is struck. The Visigothic kingdom does not slowly decline. It does not adapt. It does not recover. It vanishes. In a single generation, its kings disappear, its armies dissolve, its political order collapses. To the conquerors, the lesson is unmistakable. Nothing in the west can stop this. Now the cavalry turns north. Across the Pyrenees lies Gaul, not yet France, not yet unified, not yet a nation. A land divided by rival nobles and fragile kings. A land that appears unprepared for empire-scale war. The riders crossing the mountains are not settlers, not diplomats. They are veterans of conquest. And beyond them, history waits. Balanced on the edge of momentum and stillness, they do not arrive as wanderers. They arrive as a system. The Umayyad army crossing into Frankish territory is large, mobile, and utterly confident. These are not new recruits tasting war for the first time. These are veterans of expansion, men shaped by constant victory. At the heart of this force is cavalry, fast-moving horsemen trained not just to fight, but to dominate. They strike hard. They pursue relentlessly. They exist to break the enemy's will before breaking his body. This cavalry has already rewritten the rules of war across the Mediterranean. It shattered Visigothic armies in Iberia. It outran resistance in North Africa. It turned kingdoms into memories. Now it rides north. Deep into Aquitaine, the raiders cut through territory that has never faced warfare on this scale. Towns are sacked without warning. Local forces scatter before contact is even made. Churches, centers of wealth and authority, are stripped of gold. Sacred spaces become prizes. The message is unmistakable. No place is untouchable. But this is not yet a campaign of occupation. No cities are fortified. No borders are drawn. This is something more dangerous. A test. The Umayyad command is not asking if the Franks can be defeated. They are asking something far more strategic. How far north can the empire go before it is finally stopped? Every raid is a probe. Every skirmish is a measurement. Resistance is noted. Reaction time is observed. Fear is mapped. And so far, nothing suggests a serious obstacle. Momentum remains unbroken. Waiting for this advancing force is not an emperor, not a crowned king, not a legendary hero. He holds no throne. His name is Charles Martel. Martel's official title is almost deceptive in its modesty. Mayor of the Palace, a position meant to advise kings, to manage households, to serve. But the kings he serves are weak, divided, cautious, politically fragile. And Martel is none of those things. While others argue over legitimacy and titles, Martel has spent years doing something far more dangerous than ruling. He has been preparing, not for glory, not for conquest, but for survival. Martel understands that he cannot match the Umayyads horse for horse. Frankish cavalry is limited. In open ground, it would be destroyed. So he refuses to fight the enemy's war. Instead, he reshapes his army from the ground up. Frankish warriors, once tribal levies called up only in emergencies, are transformed into disciplined infantry. Men trained to stand shoulder to shoulder. Men equipped with heavy shields and armor. Men drilled to hold formation long after instinct screams to run. This is not fashionable warfare. It is not fast. It does not look impressive on a battlefield map. But it is deliberate. Martel understands a rule most generals learn only after defeat. Cavalry does not win battles by killing. It wins by breaking morale. Shock only works if the line collapses. Speed only matters if the enemy flees. Psychological dominance requires panic. So Martel designs an army that refuses to give cavalry what it needs. No gaps, no pursuit, no collapse. His strategy is brutally simple. Do not break. Let the charge crash and fail. Let momentum bleed away with every second the line holds. Let confidence turn into uncertainty. Where the Umayyads rely on motion, Martel relies on restraint. Where they expect fear, he offers silence. Where they seek a route, he gives them a wall. This is not passive defense, it is controlled denial. And in a war defined by speed, denial is lethal. As the raiders move deeper into Frankish lands, they do not yet realize what waits ahead. They believe they are measuring resistance. In reality, resistance is measuring them. Every mile north draws them closer to an army designed not to defeat them quickly, but to exhaust the very logic of their dominance. An army that does not intend to win by advancing, but by refusing to move at all. He does not rush south. He does not chase the invaders. He does not answer speed with speed. Charles Martel waits. While the Umayyad army advances with confidence, Martel studies the land. Not maps, not rumors, the ground itself. Near the road between Tours and Poitiers, he makes his decision, not in haste but with intent. This will not be a battlefield chosen for spectacle. It will be chosen for denial. A wooded ridge rises gently from the plain. Trees press in from the sides, narrowing movement. The approaches are tight, uneven, unforgiving. The air is cold, late autumn cold, the kind that stiffens joints, numbs fingers, and drains horses faster than men on foot. The ground is broken, not flat enough for speed, not open enough for maneuver, perfect for infantry, disastrous for cavalry. Martel understands what the invaders do not yet realize. Terrain is a weapon. The Frankish army arrives first. That alone is decisive. They take the high ground and lock themselves into it, shield by shield, rank by rank. A dense wall of iron and wood forms along the ridge. No banners surge forward. No horns call in advance. No insults are hurled across the field. There is no performance. There is only stillness. The men stand packed so tightly that there is nowhere to run and nowhere to need to. This is not an army preparing to attack. It is an army preparing to endure. Days pass, not hours. Days. The Umayyad commander watches from a distance, puzzled. This is not how northern armies are supposed to behave. Barbarians charge. They shout. They break formation in their hunger for glory. But this army does none of that. Instead, what stands before him is a silent mass. Iron helms, locked shields, unmoving ranks. A wall, no movement forward, no retreat backward, just presence. At first, the cavalry probes cautiously, then with confidence, then with force. Horses surge forward, hooves tearing into the cold earth. Riders lower their weapons, expecting impact, expecting the moment when the line buckles. It does not. The first collision is brutal. Horse meets shield, wood splinters, iron rings, and the momentum dies. Not slows, dies. Riders are thrown, horses recoil, men fall beneath their own mounts. The cavalry pulls back, reforms, and charges again. The result is the same. No breakthrough, no panic, no collapse, only resistance, again and again. Each failed charge costs more than bodies. It costs confidence. Cavalry thrives on fear, on movement, on pursuit, on the enemy's decision to run. But here nothing runs. The Frankish line absorbs impact like stone. Every second it holds drains strength from the attackers. Every minute turns speed into exhaustion. This is not the kind of battle the Umayyads were trained to fight. There is no space to exploit, no flank to roll up, no enemy to chase, only a wall that refuses to move. What was meant to be a decisive engagement becomes something far worse for the attackers, a waiting game. Armor grows heavy, horses breathe harder in the cold air. Men begin to understand that shock alone will not solve this. This is not a battle of movement, it is a battle of patience. And patience favors the side that came prepared to stand still. As the standoff drags on, the field itself seems to lean toward the defenders. The ridge holds. The trees close in. The cold seeps deeper into muscle and bone. The Frankish army does not advance, because it does not need to. Every failed charge is already a victory. Every moment without collapse proves Martel's calculation correct. Here on this chosen ground, momentum has nowhere to go. And when momentum dies, empires begin to hesitate. The battle does not break at noon, it breaks in the afternoon. As the sun begins its slow descent, exhaustion creeps into every movement. Armor that once protected now traps heat. Arms grow heavy beneath shields held too long. Breath shortens. Horses, bred for speed, not endurance, begin to tire. This is the hour that decides battles, not with courage, but with fatigue. The Frankish line still does not move, and that, more than any charge, begins to unsettle the attackers. Then, confusion. Not at the front, but behind it. A Frankish detachment slips away from the ridge and strikes the Umayyad camp. Not in a grand assault, not to burn it to the ground, but to disturb it. Tents are breached. Guards are scattered. Order dissolves for just long enough, and rumors spread faster than fire. The loot is being taken. The spoils are lost. Everything gained will vanish. For an army built on momentum and reward, this is poison. Cavalry units begin to pull back, not under orders, but instinct. Men turn their horses not to flee, but to protect what they believe is slipping away. The formation loosens. Gaps appear where there were none before. And in war, gaps are invitations. Seeing disorder ripple through his ranks, the Umayyad commander rides forward. He does not retreat. He advances, alone, exposed, trying to restore control by presence alone. This is the moment when leadership becomes visible. This is the moment when fate intervenes. He is struck down. The commander falls, and with him, certainty collapses. No clear orders follow. No single voice replaces him. The army hesitates, and hesitation, in the face of an unbroken enemy, is fatal. Not because it leads to slaughter, but because it destroys belief. Momentum dies. Confidence evaporates. The question is no longer how do we win? It becomes, should we stay? Darkness falls before an answer can be forced. There is no decisive Frankish charge, no pursuit into the night, no triumphant massacre. That too is deliberate. The Frankish army does not gamble in the dark. They hold their ground. They wait. Across the field, uncertainty deepens. Without a commander, without cohesion, the Umayyad force does what armies do when control is lost. It withdraws, quietly, carefully, under cover of night. Campfires are left burning to mask the movement. Units pull south in disciplined silence, carrying wounded, abandoning nothing they can still save. By dawn, the battlefield tells its story. The Frankish army advances cautiously from the ridge, expecting resistance. There is none. The field is empty. No banners, no cavalry, no challenge. The Umayyad force is gone. Not annihilated, not destroyed, but broken. They will never again push north with such strength. Never again test the Frankish line with the same confidence. Because what they encountered here was not superior numbers, nor overwhelming violence, but something far more difficult to defeat: control. On this field, Charles Martel did not win by chasing an enemy into the night. He won by knowing when not to, by refusing to turn resistance into recklessness, by understanding that victory sometimes lies not in pursuit, but in letting an empire decide to leave on its own. As the sun rises over the silent ground, no capital has fallen. No empire has collapsed overnight, but a boundary has been drawn, invisible, unwritten, yet final. From this moment on, the Umayyad advance beyond the Pyrenees belongs to the past. Not because it was crushed, but because here it learned something new, that some armies cannot be broken by force, only by patience. History loves simple answers, clear victories, absolute endings. For centuries, chroniclers would describe this moment with sweeping certainty. They would call it the battle that saved Europe, a single clash, a single day, a single line drawn forever. But history is rarely that clean. The truth is more precise and far more powerful. Islam does not vanish from Europe after this field falls silent. Al-Andalus does not crumble. It flourishes, artistically, scientifically, economically, for generations to come. The Mediterranean remains shared, contested, alive. What ends here is not a civilization, it is momentum. The great outward surge of Umayyad power beyond the Pyrenees stops. Not with annihilation, not with conquest, but with refusal. Refusal to break, refusal to pursue, refusal to gamble the future for spectacle. The Franks do not chase an empire into the dark. They hold the line. And in holding it, they gain something more valuable than territory. Time. Time to consolidate. Time to reorganize. Time to turn survival into structure. Empires are not only built by expansion, they are built by pauses, moments when pressure is absorbed rather than released. On this field, Europe does not win in a triumphant sense. It stabilizes. And stability, in an age of acceleration, is decisive. The Pyrenees become more than mountains. They become a boundary of ambition, not written in treaties, not marked by walls, but understood, quietly, irrevocably, by both sides. This battle does not end a world. It gives one the chance to form. From this restraint comes consequence. From this moment will rise a lineage, not born in a charge, but forged in discipline. At the center of that lineage stands Charles Martel, not crowned, not celebrated in his lifetime as a savior. Yet from him will come a dynasty that understands power not as constant motion, but as controlled force. From that dynasty will emerge Charlemagne, a ruler who will reshape Western Europe, revive imperial authority in the West, and lay foundations that endure for centuries. But none of it begins with a coronation. None of it begins with a conquest. It begins here, on a cold field with men who did not run, with soldiers who held formation while cavalry thundered toward them, with commanders who resisted the temptation to chase a retreating enemy, with leaders who understood that the hardest order to give and to obey is hold. This is the legacy of stillness, a lesson as old as war itself, yet rarely learned, that discipline outlasts fury, that restraint defeats recklessness, that history sometimes turns not on motion, but on the refusal to move. When the dust settles, no monument rises on this field. No capital falls, no empire collapses overnight, but the future shifts, quietly, decisively. Because in October 732, Europe does not surge forward. It steadies itself. And in that steadiness, a new order becomes possible. Not born of glory, not carved by speed, but shaped by patience. On a cold field in October 732, no capital fell. No crown was taken. No empire collapsed overnight. There was no parade of captives, no triumphant march into a burning city, no single moment the world could point to and say, this is where it ended. Instead, something rarer happened. The future paused. Across the quiet ground between Tours and Poitiers, armies did not surge forward. They stood where they were. They breathed. They waited. And in that waiting, the shape of Europe began to form. The Franks did not win by conquest. They did not win by speed. They did not win by chasing a retreating enemy into legend. They won by restraint, by understanding that not every victory needs a charge, that not every enemy must be pursued, that sometimes survival itself is the decisive act. At the center of that decision stood Charles Martel, a man without a crown, without an empire, without a title history usually remembers. Yet his greatest command was not an order to advance. It was an order to hold. Because when momentum finally met something it could not move, it did not explode. It faded. And when momentum fades, empires hesitate. From that hesitation came time. Time to organize, time to consolidate, time for a new order to rise. No borders were drawn that day, no treaties signed, but a boundary was understood, invisible, unwritten, final. History often celebrates motion, the charge, the breakthrough, the collapse. But on this field, history chose stillness, and that stillness proved stronger than force. So remember this moment not as a battle of blood and steel, but as a lesson carved in silence, that sometimes the most powerful move in history is not to advance, it is to stand still.